Hi. All right. So if you're watching this, that means that I am not there and you are. So I'm going to explain to you what you guys are going to be doing. You're going to be working on your discussion section of your paper today. And I just want to remind you guys that your paper is due next Thursday. So that is May 11th for you. Okay, so what you're going to do first is come to the table and grab this. It says Psychology Study Evaluation Guide, and it has grave here. So you're gonna grab one of these papers. And by the way, if you missed any of the other ones, the methods section is here, sample methods, conclusion, the outline, and then this is for your discussion section. So you're gonna grab one of these. Okay, so this is for your discussion section. You need one strength and one weakness of your paper. So of your project, you're going to evaluate it in terms of one strength and one weakness, and you can use these 4 things to evaluate your study with. So the first thing that we're going to look at is generalizability. Generalizability is how widely the findings apply to other settings and populations. So other populations means other people. So really, you're really only focusing on your sample. So out of your survey, if it's a survey, how many people did you have? Did you only have 30? Well, that's a small sample size. And were they all students at Bell Creek in high school? Well, that might not generalize to students at Riverview. It might not generalize to students in Northeast schools. It might not generalize to younger students like middle schoolers or older people like adults. Also, what is the gender breakdown? So do you have, let's say you have 25 males. 25 males took your survey and only 5 females. Well, there's a gender imbalance. So it might not generalize to women or females as well as your findings might generalize to males. And what this means is that whatever conclusions you came up with from your survey, from your experiment, we just might not be able to say, whatever your conclusions are, we might not be able to make that conclusion about females. We may not be able to make the same conclusion about students in schools on the western side of the United States. We might not be able to make that same conclusion about younger or older people. Maybe those findings only apply to your small population, your sample, not sample, but your population. So if your population could be like Bell Creek Academy High School students, your population could be whoever you're trying to generalize the findings to. If I found that people who are introverted are more creative, if that was one of my findings of my study, okay, my population, I'm talking about introverts, but my sample is only 30 kids. So only 30 kids who are only in high school. So I can't generalize to all introverts, but I might be able to generalize to the same people of your demographic. So I might be able to generalize to other high schoolers. I might be able to generalize to other people from 14 to 18 years old. So generalizability is one you can speak about, and it's a really easy one to say. A weakness, especially if you have a small sample size and a gender imbalance. If you took their information on race or ethnicity or any other characteristics, that makes your sample, that gives it its uniqueness. And so you might be able to say, if you don't have a very diverse group, you might not be able to generalize to other races or other ethnicities. All right, so that is generalizability. If you have unless you have an experiment, you're not really concerned about the setting. Reliability is the next one on the sheet. So reliability has to do with consistency. So what is consistent in your survey? Did everyone take the survey at the same time of day, the same day of the week? Was everyone given the same survey? If you given the same questions? If you had an interview, I hope you can still hear me. My AirPods did something. If you did an interview, was everyone asked the same questions? If you, oh no. Okay, we're still going. Or did you ask some extra questions to some people and not to others? So that has to do with reliability. If you had an interview, you could say that reliability was low, and that would be a great weakness for your study, for your discussion section. If you did a survey and everyone had the same questions, they answered the same questions, maybe your reliability is high because everyone got the procedure and the materials were the same for every one of your participants, every person in your sample. The other side of reliability has to do, this other side right here has to do with interpretations. So was it just you interpreting the results of your survey and your interview, or did you get someone else to look at it and see the same patterns that were there? So I didn't tell you how to do this, so this would also be a really good weakness because I am betting that most of you didn't have a second person to look at your results. But if you did, say if you had 2 or 3 people on your project and all of you saw the same pattern, interpreted the results the same way, then you could say that you have good reliability. And that is actually called, I know it's going to be backwards on here, but it's this last question here with inter-rater reliability. Inter means in between, and rater is you. So you are the rater. You are rating the results and finding patterns in there. So if you have more than one person who saw the same result, saw the same pattern, then you would have high inter-rater reliability. And by the way, for generalizability and reliability, you're going to say whether your generalizability or reliability is high or low. And there's no really in between, but you're just going to discuss why you think it's high and why you think it's low. All right. Third one, validity. So internal validity is only for experiments. Internal validity has to do with, it's not only for experiments, it could be for a survey too. Internal validity has to do with, how well was your survey or experiment or interview, how well were your questions, all of that set up to make sure that you are for sure testing what you wanted to test. Or, this is where internal validity gets low. Internal validity gets low when you have other factors in either your participants' lives or in the environment that could affect your results. So if you gave them a survey asking them, if you wanted to see a relationship between your grade and your mood, okay, you're going to get their grade numbers or their GPA, whatever they're willing to tell you, and then you're going to ask them their mood. But what if their mood that day was because their, dog ate their favorite shirt and they were upset? So is their answer to your question going to tell you that their low mood is because of their grade? Or is it because of this other factor? So internal validity has to do with these other factors that could be affecting your results. So if you have a lot of other factors that could be affecting your experiment or your survey, and maybe your survey could have been done better in a way that controlled for all these external factors. Like maybe instead of saying, what is your mood on a scale of 1 to 5, you could say on a scale of 1 to 5 or 1 to 10, how much of an impact does your grade have on your mood? Well, that would be a more appropriate question to eliminate the factors, to eliminate the potential of them answering based on other factors not related to the grade. So internal validity has to do with all these other factors. You have high internal validity if you know for a fact that you've controlled everything in a way, that your questions were set up in a way that your data is only because of the way you set up your survey or your experiment, and your variables are all set in stone, right? And then if you have low internal validity, it's if you have a likelihood of other things that could have impacted your results, to where we can't really be sure that the patterns that we saw in the data were from the exact thing you were investigating. Okay, so that's internal validity. The next one is external validity. So this is internal, this is external. External is down here. External validity has to do with how well does your experiment or survey or interview, whatever you did, how well does this represent real life scenarios? So if you are asking them to take a survey on their likelihood to order asparagus at a restaurant, if they are answering a question on a survey about if they would order it, is not the same as actually going to a restaurant and ordering it. So external validity would be low because the survey doesn't represent real life scenarios that well. Let's say you set up your survey, if you're gonna do this ordering asparagus at a restaurant, maybe you make the survey look like a menu. Well, now it's a little more externally valid, but it's still not the same as going to a restaurant and actually ordering. That would be the most externally valid survey. So for an interview, and survey, it really just comes down to what kinds of questions you're asking, and how well a survey captures that. For an experiment, it's if the experiment is done in the real world, then it's externally valid. But if it's done in a controlled environment, it would be low external validity. And if you have any questions about this, remember, you can just send me a message, explain to me your concern, and I'll give you my best input. Ethics is the last one. So there are different ethical guidelines: informed consent, physical protection, psychological protection, right to withdraw, deception and debriefing, confidentiality, and privacy. Now, instead of me going over all of those, I'm going to show you where in the textbook you can read. It's only like a few sentences for each one, but where you can read about each one. And these textbooks, there's one in every one of the desks, so you have one. It's 34. Okay, I think that's dying. It's 34. So on page 34 and 35, you'll see a breakdown of each one of those ethical guidelines. If you gave a survey and you didn't have them sign an informed consent form, which I'm assuming most of you didn't because I didn't tell you that could be a weakness, right? You didn't get an informed consent from them for your survey. By the way, if you're confused about generalizability, validity, or reliability, on page 38 in this textbook is where they, those three things are explained in a little more detail in the book. So you can always turn to the book and you can always message me. So remember, this is for the discussion section. That's the very last one before your conclusion in your paper. And you need one strength and one weakness. And you're going to use these to evaluate. So one of these things you can say is a strength, and then you explain why and how. So you have to give detail and evidence. And then one weakness. So one of these things can be something you speak about is weak in your study. For my archival research people, you don't do this. I should have said that at the beginning, but I'll write it in my little message. For everyone else, you need this discussion section. And then remember, your paper is due next Thursday. So May 11th. The outline is incorrect. I've said this before, but I'll say it again. The outline says that it's due on May 19th. It's May 11th. And I don't need you to print it. I just need you to submit it on Teams into the final draft assignment. And then the final draft assignment, I'll put it through a plagiarism checker, and then I'll grade it, and then that's it, and that's a test grade. If you are all done and you want to get started on your PowerPoint presentation, you could go ahead and start doing that, or you can help out another peer. I'm sure there's some people that might need a second look to proofread their paper. Make sure that I would definitely get someone else in class, if you are done, to look at your paper and make sure that it's outlined correctly. It has the page numbers, it's in the correct font, there's double space, there's no extra spaces anywhere, a good title, and all the sections. So, as always, send me a message if you have any questions. I'll try to look at those. Over the weekend, I will be busy, but if you can't reach me, try to reach out to another peer. Okay? Cool. That's it. Enjoy your free day. I think that's it.